Welcome to Thursday and welcome to week 4 of EDT540. Hope everybody's years are off to good, if not unusual starts. Our district has brought back the elementary age students full time as of this past Monday, and we're still looking in a little over a week to be bringing back the rest of our population full time. So it's just as we've said, one day at a time and seeing what happens from day to day. But so far, at least where we are, we seem to be managing all right. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to overview the work for this week and make sure that everybody's set up with what they need to do. So the two main topics over this next week or weeks, in terms of the technology integration plans, the next phase of that is to actually start designing your own TIP, finding the topic that you're going to focus on. And the way we're going to approach that is through a needs assessment. This addresses one of the common issues with technology, which is that sometimes technology is brought into an educational setting without a clear plan for why the technology is even needed. And so we're going to be starting with a needs assessment. So there is a pretty detailed page about what the needs assessment should look like and what you're going to be trying to achieve with your own needs assessment. But essentially, you're going to be starting to identify and detail the problem that you think can be solved with the introduction of some new technology into your schools. So that is going to be one of the main focuses. The other main focus is going to be the first of our production areas, which is going to be on graphics. And in particularly, we're going to be looking at what are called the Gestalt principles of graphic design. As a kind of a reminder, the point of this class is not to make you an expert on any given graphic design platform. This is not an Illustrator class or a Photoshop class. It's more about looking at some good principles and ideas that no matter what software you're using to create your graphics, or even if you're doing them by hand, these principles still apply and are still things you should keep in mind in order to make your instructional graphics effective and readable to your students. So those are the two main topics for the week. In terms of sequence of activities, there is one little housekeeping thing that I want you to do on your Moodles, and that is I'm asking you to add a dialogue activity to the top area of your Moodle, and we will use that as a means for me to provide feedback to you on your Moodles as you start to develop them. So I've linked a page here in our class Moodle that walks you through the steps of how to do that and what you should name that particular activity and where it should go. Then as I see those appear in the Moodles, I'm going to be starting to take a look at what you've done so far. I know we haven't put much in there in terms of content, but you should have your teacher introduction in there. You should have done some work on at least sequencing and figuring out how many sections your Moodle project is going to have based off of your instructional design plan. So that's just kind of that'll be a quick activity. It won't take you very long at all, but that'll give us a way to communicate about your Moodles. Then in terms of the instructional graphics, there is a document that you should look through that is an introduction to the Gestalt principles, what they are, what the different laws are. There's not 100% agreement on everything that constitutes the Gestalt principles. So in terms of the laws here, I've tried to go through and kind of collect together the ones that do seem to have the widest agreement in terms of being a part of the Gestalt principles. But in each case, it talks about what the law is, how to do it, and then in some cases also what the impact of those particular aspects of the Gestalt principles have on educational and cognitive results. Because if you're going to use graphics, you want your students to get something out of them. So we want to make sure that they work with what we know about how brains process visual images. So look through that first. As you go through, Be keeping in mind as you're reading sort of how does this apply to instruction, maybe if you've got examples from your own use or your own experience. Then the interactive activity for this is going to be a Moodle database activity. And this is actually, I'm killing two birds with one stone with this. I think, as I mentioned last week, one of my goals as we go through our own instruction in this class is that I want you to have experiences using a number of the activities and resources that Moodle makes available. That way, you may look at an activity and, having used it in class, say, oh, this would be a really good fit for my Moodle, and give you an idea about sort of how they work and what they can do. So this week's activity related to the Gestalt principles is being set up as a Moodle database activity. And that will give you the instructions that you need. Basically, you're going to be applying one of the rules from the Gestalt principles to 3 images that I've provided you, and all 3 are supposed to be instructional graphics. So you will be assessing them in the light of one of the Gestalt laws that you get to choose. And you will then be creating a database activity based on your analysis. And this database basically allows a teacher to set up a series of fields that students have to fill in information for to create an entry. So in this particular aspect, when you go to add your own entry, you're going to name the principle that you've chosen. If you notice that somebody else in the class has already submitted an entry on a given law, then I ask that maybe you pick a different one so we can cover a number of the laws here. So you'll name the law, you give a brief overview of what that Gestalt principle is. Then you're going to decide between the 3 images that I've provided which one is the best and the worst example of that particular law, and then give us a little write-up about why you made those choices. What was it about the best image that made it the best one in terms of the law, and the worst one, and what was the instructional impact? Meaning, because it was the worst one, what about the image would have gotten in the way of using it as an instructional tool with your students? So that is what the entry will look like, and you just hit save and view, and that will add your database entry to the activity. And again, this database activity, now, once you've used it, you may think about your own Moodle and say that might be something that you want to include in your Moodle as well. So that'll kind of carry us through that. In terms of the graphics themselves, I do want you to create at least one instructional graphic that you will use in your Moodle. So think through the topic you've picked in your Moodle. Think about an opportunity where you might want to have a visual something using the software of your choice. And again, this class is not about teaching you a specific piece of graphic software. I give you some links to some free online options if you don't have a graphics program you like to use. But honestly, if you do graphics using Microsoft Word, then that is perfectly okay. I do that all the time if I just need a quick graphic. Sometimes Word is the easiest way to do it. So, but I just want you to create at least one graphic. You're going to upload it to the first of our production forums. And then as people post their graphics, just take a few minutes to check in and provide some constructive feedback for each other on the graphics that you've posted. So that's that. So that's really the bulk, I think, of the work for this week is going to be focused on graphic design and Gestalt principles. Phase 2 of the technology integration plan, as I said, is the needs assessment. Take a few minutes to read through the information that's here about what a needs assessment is, and then what I'm going to be asking you to do in terms of your own technology integration plan. Again, because this project is being spread out over the whole semester, you're going to have a good 3 or 4 weeks to complete this phase. So that should give you a good amount of time to really kind of decide what the need is and get it documented and so on. But you will be doing like you did with phase 1. You'll be writing up your needs assessment in a Word document and then submitting that Word document via the assignment for me to take a look at. If you have not yet gotten phase 1 turned in, and I just did a quick check, and it does look like there's still at least a couple of you that need to get those in, try to get those in as soon as you can, mainly just so you're not getting too far behind in terms of this. We've got 5 phases to complete for these technology integration plans, and I just want to make sure that everybody is staying up with the pacing of the work. So you can take a look at this and start working on that phase 2 of the technology integration plans. And that is basically the work for the week, and with the technology plan actually for the next several weeks. As always, let me know if you have questions. I will be on the WebEx, there we go, early morning. I will be on WebEx this evening at 7:30 for at least 7:30 to 8 or so. So if you have any questions and would like to talk to me in person, certainly feel free to drop by during that time frame. You don't have to check in if you don't need to, but I will be there for a check-in if anybody wants to take advantage of that or you have any questions over this work. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to sign off for now and get this week's work available to you. And good luck, and as always, let me know if I can help in any way. All right, enjoy the rest of your weeks.